All right, here we go. This is not in your notes. You'll get it on Tuesday, but just to give you a visualization of what you're really doing, your aim at the end of the day, after chapter 5, chapter 7, they just want you to sketch any quadratic equation. Okay, so it's y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. There are only 3 things that you need to sketch a parabola correctly, which is 3 marks. Number 1, you need your y-intercept. Now, how do you find your y-intercept again? What's the theory? How do you find your y-intercept? What do you normally let? X equals to 0. Sorry? Okay, sure. Let x equal to 0. So that one's easy to do. Next one, turning point. You need to find the turning point. I've shown you 2 ways to find the turning point. One, you had the rule x equals negative b on 2a. Don't write this down because it's on your sheet already. And the next one was you read the turning point form. So a bracket x minus h squared plus k. All right, so that was one of the key things that you would learn to do. Then this is where most of your learning comes from. Exercise 5C, 5D that I emphasized about 4 weeks ago. This is where it comes in. You're trying to find the x-intercept. Let y equal to 0. If this is your equation, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, your job is to solve when that whole thing equals 0. This is why you needed to learn how to factorize. So there are 2 ways to do this. You've got to solve it, you can learn to factorize, which is what you've been doing. Factorizing, you had the method called cross method or grouping method. This was 5C, 5D. This is why I said if you couldn't do 5C, 5D, that whole branch there is gone. Okay, so 5C, 5D was key. And then from there, you use null factor law, NFL, null factor law, which is exercise 5F to solve. That's how you found your x-intercepts. Yeah? Along the way, you also learnt another type of factorizing. You had DOPS. A squared minus b squared equals to a bracket minus b, a plus b. Right? Then you also learnt a third method of factorizing, completing the square. That was 5e. Okay, so you can see that there are some skills here. If you didn't know your algebra, this whole branch is essentially what year 10 does. Every time year 11 walks in, that's what I'm assessing first. Can you do this? Most students can't. So that branch is cut off. What's nice is what I'm teaching you today is that even if you didn't know it, you can still sketch. You can still get your 3 marks. Just knowing that, how to find your x-intercept.
Students running stalls in the next break, could you please go to the Mill Palmer room to start setting up?
No.
Students running...
Continue recording now. All right. So even if you didn't understand any of this algebra and you throw it out out the door, technically next week's test, you can still do all of this. Everyone here can find y-intercept because everyone can sub 0 into an equation. So that's half a mark. Everyone can find a turning point because there is a rule here that allows you to sub in and then solve. You get a calculator as well. So that should be all right. So turning point should be good. Then, fortunately for you, there is also a rule today which I'm teaching you. It's exercise 5i if you just want to use the rule, but 7E is practicing the sketch. Okay, so 7E falls in here where it's called the quadratic formula. So at the end of the day, if you still can't factorize 5C, 5D after 4 weeks of time, you still can't do 5C, 5D, that whole branch is taken away, you can do this to find your x-intercepts. You get your 3 marks. Okay, so turning point, x-intercept, y-intercept, put together your shape. There's your 3 marks. Okay, so don't fret too much if you can't do the factorizing. At least the whole point, even if you're not doing methods, the point is there are a set of algebraic thinking and critical thinking that can help you in general. Because in general, you still have to do critical thinking. There's networks and matrices that you still need to know how to apply and think. So that's why it helps. But for those who like using formulas, this is a great exercise to do. Okay, so I'm going to show you how it is. Now look at your sheet. Let's have a look at your sheet that I've got for you today. That's the picture of what we're doing. Here's the formula. Don't worry, I'll give it to you on the day. You'll get the formula. You don't have to memorize it, but this is your formula. It's big. Yes, I know. Negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I used to get my year 12s to sing this just to remember it as well. They'll be like, negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a, woo! And then we go, and we just continue. Anyways, this is your formula. How does it work? This is your general equation, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, which I already wrote down here. A is the number in front of x squared, b is the number in front of x, and c is the number by itself. So if you know those three numbers, sub it into a formula, and it will tell you the x-intercept. So I'm going to say that again. There's a lot of students calculate it. I had it in my year 9, both 2 different classes. Those kids have tutors, and then they used the formula. They found x, but they didn't even know what it was. They did all this big calculation for nothing, right? It is to find your x-intercept. At the end of the day, you just want to know when it crosses the x-axis, yeah? The other formula I gave you, this one, it's called the axis of symmetry, but really it's to find your turning point. So write that as a note in case you've forgotten. That formula there, negative b divided by 2a, will help you find the x-coordinate of the turning point. Okay, so that's why I'm saying you got 2 formulas that you can rely on that you can still sketch, even if you don't know any algebra at this point. You can just substitute and solve. All right, let's do an example then. Let's tie this together. So what's 7e? 7e is going to give you an equation where you cannot use cross method. So the algebra, even if you knew your algebra, you can't use cross method. When you can't use cross method, you're meant to do completing the square. But let's say you don't know how to do that. Let's use the quadratic formula. So here we go. To sketch, you need 3 things. Y-intercept, x-intercept, turning point, right? So let's start off with the easiest one. Y-intercept. How do you find y-intercept again? You let x equals 0. So in this case, y-intercept would be y is equal to 3 times 0 squared minus 6 times 0 plus 1. And we know the answer is 1. Because you can see if you put a 0 here, these will just cancel out. True? So the answer is 1. So you already got half a mark. 0, 1. Well done. That was just subbing. That's why I'm saying everyone here can do it. Just sub x equals 0. If you're telling me you can't do that, that's a lie. It's because you just don't want to do it. Next one. Let's find x-intercept now. So normally to find x-intercept, that's meant to be the hard one to do. So x-intercept, you would let y equal to 0. You were then meant to solve this. 0 is equal to 3x squared minus 6x plus 1. And unless you've learnt cross method or completing the square, you're then screwed here. But that's what I'm saying. It's okay. I gave you a formula. Anyone still remember the formula? Or you're going to look at the screen or look at the page? What's the formula again? X equals negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4 ac all over 2a. Very good. This is your formula. So all you need to know is a, b, and c. What's my a? What's my b? What's my c? A is equal to 3. B is equal to, careful, negative 6. The sign matters, so it's negative 6. And then c equals to 1. So if you want to know your x-intercepts, here we go. Your x-intercepts are at, and let's solve it. Negative of b, which is negative of negative 6, plus minus square root b squared, so negative 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 1, all over 2 times 3. Notice I'm using the brackets to just separate them all out. I just substitute them in. Type this on your calculator. If you have a scientific, you obviously can't use a graphics calculator because then you can all cheat. But we type it in together. Double negative, so that's there. Double negative of 6 makes it a positive. So double negatives is positive. So I've got positive 6. Plus minus square root. Give you a bit of time to catch up because I know there's quite a bit to write there. Give you a bit of time to catch up. Negative 6 squared is 36. Minus 4 times 3 times 1. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 1 is still 12. Your job is just to figure this out on your calculator. Now, likely, this is not going to give you a nice whole number. It's likely to give you a surd form. So let's continue this on all the way up here because my handwriting is a bit big. So let's continue it all the way back up here. x is then equal to 6 plus or minus root of 36 minus 12. What is that? Is that 24? 24 over 6. You can simplify the root 24. Anyone remember the surds? How do you simplify root 24? 2 root 6. That is true. Yes, that is right. 6 plus minus 2 root 6. If you didn't know how to do that, your calculator does it for you as well. So if you type square root 24 and press enter, it will simplify it for you. Now, right here, once you simplify, I can see that 6, 6, and 2, they all have a common factor. What's the common factor of 6, 6, and 2? 2. So 6, 6, and 2 have a common factor of 2. So I'm going to divide them all by 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. And that simplifies to 3 plus minus root 6 on 3. You can't do plus minus on your calc. Oh, you can, but actually, I wonder if they know. I've never used it on a CAS before, but where is it found? Let me just find your calculator. I'll pause the video for a moment, actually. That's a good question. If you're doing this on the... And it's recording again. All right, team. So, here's my x-intercept. Don't change it to decimals. Leave it as the exact form. If you happen to leave it here, that's still okay. Later on, year 11, you'll get penalized for that. But at the moment, you can leave it here because it just means that your surd skills aren't there yet. But at least you got the x-intercepts. Now, for those who don't understand what the plus minus means, this literally just means you've got two answers. X could either equal to 6 plus root 24 over 6, or x could equal to 6 minus root 24 on 6. That's all it means. Okay? So you got two x-intercepts there. You could either have 6 plus the root 24 or 6 minus the root 24 on 6 there. You don't need to know the actual answer because when you're sketching, what do you need? You only need 3 points, right? I haven't even found the turning point, but I can sketch this now. Here we go. Yeah. No, because this is essentially saying you got 3 plus minus root 6 like that. So you can cross them out individually. This becomes 1, but this still has the root 3. So if you cross it off like this, then it's a different answer. It's almost like saying if I gave you 2 plus 1 on 3, actually, that's not a good way to explain it. Let's do 2, right? The answer should be 3 on 2. But if I cross this off, you're essentially saying 1 equals 3 on 2. It's not the same. 3 on 2 is 1.5. So that's the reason why you can't just cross off top and bottom. That's because there's a plus sign. So there's 2 fractions there. That's why. All right. So going back to our point here, what were we saying? We were saying that you got your x-intercepts, you got your y-intercepts, right? If you actually just plot it, you know how I said put the points first or sketch the graph and then do the points. But if you have a look, y-intercept we got as 0, 1. So if I go here and I just go 0, 1, let's just go 0, 1. That's y-intercept. X-intercept, you had 6 plus root 24 and 6 minus root 24. Now let's have a think for a moment. I don't know the answer for root 24, but roughly, what should that be? What should root 24 roughly be? Think about it. Root 16 and then root 25. That's very specific, but yes, it's roughly between 4 and 5, right? Because root of 16 is 4 and root of 25 is 5. So clearly root 24 has to be somewhere between 4 and 5. Now, if I said 6 minus 4 point something, is that still a positive number or negative number? Still positive. Yeah, 6 take away 4 is still a positive number, right? And then, so if you write it down, you've got either 2 points here. You got 6 minus root 24 on 6. And the other one was 6 plus root 24 on 6. And you can see that I can already sketch just using those 2 points. I've already got my graph because all you needed was a y-intercept and you needed an x-intercept. You can already sketch your graph. What am I missing though? Turning point. Now we know the turning point is in the center between these two. But if you haven't realized yet, have you noticed this was 6 plus? So 6 plus root 24. And this was 6 minus root 24. It's actually even on either side. So the center should be 6. But even if you didn't know that, I gave you the formula just now to find the x coordinate of the turning point. It was turning point to find that out was x equals to negative b on 2a. Now let's put it together. What's my b again? Negative 6. So I can then say, all right, well, that's negative of negative 6 divided by 2 times a, which is 3. That works out to be 6 over 6 gives you 1. I must have done something wrong here.
It's 6 minus square root 24 over 6. So when you go to the...
Oh, sorry, it's over 6 as well. That's right. I didn't pay attention to that. That's true. That's right. So the center now I know is at 1. What we're missing now is just the turning point here. We know x coordinate is 1. How do you find the y coordinate? You got x equals 1. Yeah, and that's what you've been doing in exercise 7C and then exercise 7D. Now we're doing 7E. It's the same thing. To find the y coordinate, you sub in x equals 1 into the equation. Cameras? Yeah. Into the equation. So the equation was y equals 2, 3x squared minus 6x minus 1. Can you see why I don't like using quadratic formula? Because there's a lot of subbing. Whilst it's easy to do, you got a formula you sub in, it gets really tiring to substitute each time you do. So it's 3, 1 squared minus 6 times 1 minus 1. Is it plus 1? Oh, you're right. Thank you. It was a plus 1. And this gives me 3 minus 6 plus 1. 3 minus 6 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. And so my coordinate is 1, negative 2. And I get my 3 points to sketch. Now, what I did there looks intense. But really, what did I do? I only used 3 things. 1, I subbed in x equals 0 for the y-intercept. 2, I substituted into this formula to find the x-intercept. And then 3, I used this formula to find the turning point. So there's only 3 things I did, but a lot of substitution to do. That's what 7E is. 7E is to get you to practice finding x-intercept using the quadratic formula. That's it. Okay? So that right there looks intense. And it's probably not ideal for a lot of students because of the surds. If you're not familiar with the surds, that's why it looks intense. But really the technique that I'm showing you, there's only 3 steps there.
Wait, I don't get how to like put the x on because
Yeah.
I don't understand like where.
Yeah, okay. All right. U10s, just listening for a moment here. Thanks, U10s. Shh. I get the surds are confusing here, so I'm just going to illustrate what I was doing before. Here we go. Y, x. All right, you know how we found the y-intercept was 0, 1? Yeah, so that was easy because you were able to say, yep, 0, 1. Now your x-intercept, you figured it out to be this. You had 6 plus or minus root 24 on 6. In fact, we simplified it even further and we had 3 plus minus root 6 on 3, I think it was. You can use this or you can use that. I didn't mind. I was just sticking with the first one, so you don't have to learn to simplify surds if that was your weakness. But let's just say here, so we've got 2 answers. You've got x-intercept is 6 plus root 24 on 6. Now, if you had a calculator, you could probably figure out what the decimal is, and then all of you would totally understand what's happening. I didn't know what the answer was. But I used logic here. I said, well, you got 6 plus root 24 and 6 minus root 24, both out of 6. Out of these 2, I just needed to know, is the x-intercept going to be here? Is it going to be here? That's all I needed to know, because if you know it's going to cross the y-axis, which one is it? It's a positive graph, but is it over here or is it over there? And so I asked you before, I said, well, what's root 24 roughly? You told me it was roughly 4. So when I thought about it, I was like, well, 6 plus 4 is going to give me a 10. So obviously it has to be somewhere on the right-hand side, whilst this one is 6 take away 4-ish, should be about somewhere over here. That's why I was like, oh yeah, it should be on the right-hand side, and I immediately rubbed this one off. But had I known it was a negative, then I would have known it should have been on this side. So you got to use a bit of judgment, unless you've got a calculator, you can use the decimals, then you'll all know where to go.
Will we get like deducted if it's slightly like if it's not?
No, you don't get deducted for the shapes. What we're interested in is your labeling. So if you labeled them correctly, so even if it's not to scale, they're okay with that because the numbers are quite minuscule. And so they're happy for you to, as long as you write down, this is 6 plus root 24 on 6, 0, they're okay with that. And then if you write this side as 6 minus root 24 on 6, when y is 0, they're okay with that too. Then when you label your turning point, we knew it was at 1 and the y value was at -2, this is okay. As long as you're labeling the key points, they're not going to penalize you at this point. Yeah, that's why I can understand why the square roots scare you. And that's why a lot of students like to change it to a decimal, because you guys understand decimals better than fractions and surds. Yeah. So what makes this exercise part here hard was just the surds, not the theory. Theory is just plugging into a formula and then you get your x-intercepts. Yeah.
So how many different ways are there to find the x1?
There's only one way to find the y-intercept. There is 2 ways to find your turning point, and there are like 3 main ways to find your x-intercept, which is why that flowchart I'm going to give you on Tuesday, once you have a bit of time to practice. On Tuesday, this essentially summarizes what you need to know. So this right here is pretty much year 10. Right there, that's year 10 stuff. That's what you're practicing to do. All that chapter 5, chapter 7 was to train here. That's what you... Sorry? Well, if you plan on doing methods, yes, because it's a bunch of tools. There's a lot of tools here. And so that's what I'm saying. It's literally all algebraic. You've got all these tools. You have to know when to use them. There are best times to use them. Whereas my year 9s, for example, they learnt this from a tutor and they used that all the time. And they ignored cross method. So when I gave them a simple problem, like a non-monic one, they were using quadratic formula and it took them ages. They took them half a page to get the answer, when my other students who learned the cross method took only 2 steps. So it's not that it's wrong. The student got the right answer, but it took a longer way to get there. And the way that I described it to them was, instead of doing, say, 99 times 1, yeah? What's 99 times 1 right now? 99. We all know the answer is 99, right? But this is what the student's doing. In quadratic formula, you're essentially doing 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 99 times. So whilst you're correct, that's a very long way of doing it. So there are some times that works, and then there are times that you shouldn't do that. So the more tools you know, the better for you. That's essentially how it is. But I do know one of the most essential skills is cross method. At least learn that before you learn, because most students forget DOPS, and most students will forget completing the square. Those are like your key skills there. And that's 7D and 5E. This is 5C, 5D. Hence why I was saying practice 5C, 5D is your key skill. All right. I'm going to stop my video here because I can see that there's a lot of algebra coming along. You might be a bit intimidated. I just wanted you to know how to use this rule. On Tuesday, I'll talk about the second page, which is discriminants. It's on that last page there, discriminants, and that will be the last bit for you to know. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here. Ask me some questions if you're unsure how the quadratic formula works, but literally, you just need to memorize that. That's it. Okay, I'm going to stop the video here.